Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is called Truma. It is an offering, and it begins in the book of Exodus with the beginning of chapter 25, where God first tells Moses to instruct the children of Israel about the building of the tabernacle. Now, this portion, of course, is full of laws and details of exactly how the tabernacle will be built, how everybody will be called upon to donate, the materials that will be used, the fabrics, the gold, the silver, etc., all the vessels and the structure of the tabernacle. This portion actually begins just after Moses ascends to Mount Sinai. After we've already had the revelation at Mount Sinai, we have the Torah portion that deals with so many of the laws that are given at the same time. But then at the very end of chapter 24, we have in verse 12, "And the Lord said to Moses, 'Come up to me to the mountain and be there, and I will give you the tablets of stone and the Torah and the commandments which I have written, that you may teach them.'" And then, of course, Moses just goes up to Mount Sinai. So and the chapter actually ends, "And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain, and Moses was in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. And then begins our Torah portion of this week. So it would seem logically that this speaking that God does to Moses with the instruction regarding the tabernacle is the instruction that Moses actually receives from God while he is up on Mount Sinai. Now, there's actually a difference of opinion among the sages as to whether the commandment for the tabernacle happened right here as it is presented in chronological order in the Bible, or is it indeed a commandment that was given after the sinning of with the golden calf. It is written here, but actually took place chronologically a bit later. And the people who take this point of view the whole structure of the tabernacle as something that was a response to the sinning of the golden calf, giving the children in Israel a vehicle with which to worship God that was tangible on the one hand, but did not involve pagan worship on the other. And then, of course, there are those who know that the order of things is exactly as it is written, that the order for the tabernacle was actually given right here, right after, as Moses is up on Mount Sinai for the first time. Now, just to give a bit of credence to the argument that says this is actually out of order, later on, we have in chapter 35, we have the first time that we have recorded when Moses actually gives the commandment to the children of Israel to build the tabernacle. It says in verse 4, "And Moses spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, 'This is the thing which the Lord commanded, saying, take from among you an offering to the Lord,'" etc. And then we have practically a repetition of what we have in this week's portion about the instructions of how to build the tabernacle. So there's no question that the instruction to the children of Israel came after the sinning of the golden calf, after the giving of the second set of tablets. The question just remains whether the instruction to Moses came earlier, or did it also come when Moses was up on the mountain on the second time. However, there is a verse in this week's portion that I think strengthens the idea that indeed this commandment was given the first time Moses was on Mount Sinai, and that is in chapter 25, verse 16. "And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I shall give you." This is something that God is saying to Moses as part of the instructions in building of the ark. He talks about the testimony which I shall give you. Now, the testimony in Hebrew is edut. This is the word that is used to refer to the actual tablets, the 10 Commandments. And this, of course, is what happens at the end of Moses' sojourn on Mount Sinai. At the very end, before he comes down, we have the verse, and this is chapter 31, Verse 18, and he meaning God, he gave to Moses, when he had made an end of speaking to him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. I find, first of all, it's very personal, the way God says to him, the testimony which I will give you. It is God that is going to be giving these tablets to Moses, and I don't know, to me it conjures up a very personal gift. I'm going to be handing you these tablets, and it's probably the only time, I think the only time at all that we see in the Bible that God is handing something, a physical object, to a human being. And that's clearly what happens here, because as I read towards the end of this section, God actually gives Moses these tablets. Unlike what happens in the second time on Mount Sinai, where God tells Moses, you will carve these tablets. God doesn't hand Moses the tablets the second time. Rather, Moses himself takes the tablets and carves upon them what had originally been written by God the first time around. And therefore, I believe that we see quite a justification for this idea that God gave the instruction for the tabernacle the first time he was on Mount Sinai, and it was all planned. The idea of the ark, where Moses would then put the tablets in the ark that God had actually handed to him. There is, on the other hand, a value and actually a beautiful thought in this concept that the tabernacle was commanded in response to the worship of the golden calf. And I think that thought tells us that God was listening to the children of Israel. And the children of Israel, in worshiping the golden calf, were essentially expressing a difficulty in being able to grasp God. They were looking for something physical that they could see and witness in order to worship. And while the idea of worshiping a golden calf is certainly totally unacceptable, God perhaps listened to the children of Israel and responded with the commandment for a tabernacle. Certainly a physical manifestation, a physical way, not a manifestation of God, but a physical way in which to worship God. Both opinions are legitimate, and I think both of them have beautiful thoughts to present to us. Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.